Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite. Voices like the park fans drift in jerseys. Legacy bold, the metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
All right, Mets fans, what is up? How is everybody doing on this, the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channels and on X? Hopefully everybody's enjoying their Thursday and getting ready for some Mets baseball at Citi Field. It is always good to be home as the Mets start their 7-game homestand against the Cardinals, and we get to talk all about it today. And, of course, recapping quickly the 2 series and specifically the Twin Series, as we lost 2 games out of 3. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm doing pretty good. The Mets are 11-7, 3-3 on the road trip, coming back home for, a couple of series. And, at this point, I think what is wrong with this team is pretty self-evident. But, with the way that Mets social media, fans, and everything else, radio hosts, etc., have been talking, you'd think that this team was 7-11. So, another opportunity. The beautiful thing about baseball, we were live for the post game yesterday. The Mets did lose. They lost the series. First time losing 2 games in a row. We discussed it. We analyzed it. And guess what? We move on, because that's the beautiful thing about baseball, Rob. I say it all the time, right? There's always an opportunity in the next day, because the Mets don't have any off days for 13 games straight until probably the middle of next week. So let's get it. Let's get into it. I'm excited.
Yeah, Met fans have to relax. It does feel like the Mets are in, it feels like the Mets are in last place right now, the way Met fans are talking. I mean, we are in first place by a game. I mean, we could be the Braves, right? We could be the last place team in the NL East right now, but we're not. With all the problems that the offense has gone through the first 18 games of the season, we're still 11-7. We are in first place. Have we played great? By no means. Absolutely not. But it's mostly because of the offense. And if we all can be honest, we all believe this offense could and will be better. When that happens, who knows? I mean, hopefully it starts on his homestand against the Cardinals and keep it going through the Philly series at home. But we just have to wait and see. But I mean, we'll get into the whole nooks and crannies of, the issues with this offense. And it's obviously the big names in this lineup that have been the major issue, and why the Mets have lost most of their games, and it's been solely on the offense. But it's a new day, like you said, Chris. You lose a series. This is the first series of the year that you lost, right? There was the first back-to-back.
The Astros. The Astros.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry about that. The first back-to-back. That's what I was going to say. The first back-to-back game, 2 games in a row we lost. So we're on a 2-game losing streak. We haven't had a losing streak yet, right? This is how you break it. Yeah, we got Griffin Cannon. We'll see what we're going to get out of him coming back from the flu. I mean, he was supposed to pitch yesterday, so I don't know how much better he is today. So I wouldn't be shocked if it's a short stint. The Mets did make a couple of roster moves, as we'll get into as well, when it comes to the roster moves, and see how that kind of, works with the bullpen today. But overall, they've found ways to win ball games. I mean, they almost won yesterday. I know that's, it doesn't go in your win column, it doesn't go as a half a win, but they did come back late in the game. That was one of the things that they were great at last year. That was so much fun. and they almost did it yesterday, right? Unfortunately, the 10th inning happened. I don't know what the hell happened in the 10th inning, Chris. It a couple of bad at bats, and we all, you did the post game, how it went. It wasn't pretty, but what did you take out of the Twin series, as it's our second series loss of the year?
Yeah, I don't really think, minus the Brandon Nimmo at bat
Yeah,
in that 10th inning. Jesse Winker smoked the baseball, to second base for a double play. Nothing you can really do. I mean, he tattooed that baseball. Alonso right before him walked to set up first and second, nobody out. And really, Brandon Nimmo was the one that swung first pitch and looked pretty bad with runner on third with 2 outs. Um, but outside of that, I saw a lot of hard contact, especially in those later innings. Tyrone Taylor got robbed. We all know Brandon Nimmo was supposed to have an RBI single. Jesse Winker, tried to score from second base, and Harrison Bader gunned him out by millimeters. And it was just one of those games where it's a game of inches or less. And those inches or less was the difference in the ball game. And you can say that for like 3 or 4 different plays in that ball game, right? I mean, Jose Buto getting absolutely hosed by the first base umpire on a terrible call, and the Mets not being able to challenge after losing their challenge. Like, there's so many points in that game that you can pinpoint, and you're like, wow, this is really, the Mets could have taken the lead and probably never looked back, but it just never materialized. So I think more so, from a holistic standpoint, the offense in its entirety, you know, just still looks a little sluggish. I think that we can all agree that they are not clicking on all cylinders. Juan Soto, for as bad as he's looked to the naked eye, is still producing, believe it or not, right? He is still effective in terms of getting on base, whether it's the walk or any other method, right? And also turning the table over to Pete Alonso. So at least that has, that's what's going for the top of the lineup there. But I think it's very objective outside of Pete Alonso and recently Luis Angel Acuna, who is not in today's lineup for some odd reason. It really hasn't been pretty for this Mets offense. And I pinpoint it to a little bit of lack of a clutch hitting perspective, right? We all know the runners in scoring position metrics for the offense has been bad. It's been pretty brutal. But I think with the late and close, we talked about late and close and that statistic for Pete Alonso last season and how he wasn't really a good clutch hitter. That applies to the entirety of the Mets offense as they rank in the bottom 15 teams in the league in terms of late and close and that actual niche statistic. So that needs to be a lot better, right? Cashing in opportunities where, you get traffic on base. That has not been the problem for the New York Mets. They're getting traffic on base. And that's what is so frustrating in terms of the lack of output, getting those runners in outside of Pete Alonso. So, a couple of positive things to actually notice. I mean, Brett Beatty coming off of a multi-hit game, that is absolutely huge for him. Hopefully he can take that into this game as well. You've got Luis Angel Acuna heating up. I know Mark Vientos sat in that third game, the rubber match of the Twins series, but he's been putting together better at bats. The average, the on base percentage, the OPS doesn't show it, but he has a quiet little 4-game hit streak. And I think that he's making a lot more solid contact. So we're starting to see shades of it, maybe turning it around, but we need this entire offense to click. I really do think that the glue piece of that happening has to be Brandon Nimmo. He has to be better. We have to hold him accountable. And I know that you've been holding him accountable thus far. And, I think everybody should, because he should be that glue piece in order to get the Mets going in the middle of that lineup. But you take a look at game 2 as well. A costly error by Francisco Lindor in the early stages of the game. Tyler McGill is a little bit inefficient. And it just seemed like the Mets were a little bit lethargic. They made the little mistakes. Even in game 3, right? A couple of just miscues by the middle infielders, Luis Angel Acuna, Francisco Lindor, on the relay plays where the outfielders were getting the ball in quickly and had the opportunity to get some runners out at second base on the throw-in, and nobody was in the correct position in terms of the middle infield lineup. So, it's just the little things. And again, I said this on the post game yesterday. For those of y'all who tuned in, shout out to you. Appreciate you all tuning in and even coming in to discuss a loss, because I know it's kind of hard to do. It's not as appealing as coming in talking about a win, but it just seems like of the Mets' first 7 losses, I think that most, if not all of those games have been lost by inches, right? They've been lost by inches, and basically the Mets beating themselves rather than the opposing team just putting a beat down on the New York Mets. I think that all of these games that they have lost have been within reach. So if there's any silver lining with those 7 losses, I think that we could take that away. Is that if you make a play or two here and there, you're talking about potentially cutting those losses in half, if not greater. That's the way that I assess things.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not worried, because it's not like we weren't getting people on base. We've been finding ways to get on base. We haven't been driving them in. Again, 44 men left on base in that Twin series. You cut that by 5 or 6 runs throughout 3 games, you probably sweep. Like that's how it's a base hit here or there, driving in 2, driving in 1. I mean, it's little things, sacrifice fly, God forbid. If we actually get one of those, that would be nice. It's a little situational hitting that I think has been even the bigger problem. In situations when there's less than 2 outs, like they need to get these runners in, and it's not like it's been Brett Beatty up most of the time or Tyrone Taylor. It's been the Lindors, the Sotos, the Vientos, the Nimos. Again, I said it on Mets Talk Live earlier today, right? Our Lindor, Soto, Vientos, and Nimmo have left a small village left on base this season. That has been the problem. If they were just a little bit, not even good, they were a little bit better, a little bit below average, because right now they're terrible. If they were a little bit below average, who knows how many more wins we would have. I don't think we would have 7 losses, that's for sure. So it's such a small margin of error, and that's why I'm not concerned. Is the pitching going to hold up? We all hope so, right? We don't know, right? We just don't know. We didn't expect the starting pitching to be as good as they've been. The bullpen, I think we all expected to be good. I don't know about this good, but they've been extremely good. They had a couple of, cracks, but nothing crazy. Eventually they're going to give up some runs. It is what it is. But, overall, I think the concern, people are more focused in on Juan Soto. And you know what? Let them focus in on Juan Soto, because that means they're not talking about Nimmo, Vientos, Lindor. I mean, we are. I mean, I can't speak for other like radio hosts that want to, speak about that stuff and all that. But overall, let them keep on talking about Soto, because Soto has been productive in his own weird way. Like you said, Chris, like he's been getting on, like I said, Pete Alonso. How many times have Pete Alonso drove Juan Soto in? Like it's been a good amount of time, because Juan Soto has been getting on base. And if this is the worst of Juan Soto, we're in for a big treat for a while, because
100%.
Like it could be worse. Like he cannot be getting on base, along with the higher strikeouts. A little worrisome, but I just think that's him trying too much, reaching out of the strike zone to try to do something.
Let me just say this as it pertains to the Juan Soto discussion, because again, with that contract, especially coming over from the Yankees, going across town, you're going to have all eyes on you. I understand it. But if you're a Mets fan and you're contemplating about booing him when he comes back to Citi Field based off of the first 17 games of this season, you need to be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
Like you should be ashamed of yourself. Booing Juan Soto after the first 17 games is ridiculous. I'm not here for that. I don't stand for that. And I think that just even that being a question is ridiculous. And really, people, I get it. It's your hard-earned money. You go spend it how you want to. I think that is just ridiculous. So I'll just say that, because I saw a lot of that chatter, and that starts with the radio guys, because they just love to just start this up. They love to start this up. And guess what? This fan base eats that up, and that's also half the problem. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the New York fan base is set up 100%. I mean, I know, like I'm religious and listen to WFN. Everybody knows that. I've listened to it. I leave it on before I sleep. I go to work. I leave it on. I'm at work. I have it on. So I listen to all the shows. So I know the nonsense they spew. And listen, I'm not an avid caller like I used to be. I don't call much anymore, because I don't like the way they do everything. They do everything for clicks and baits now, and it's not as they did us off base of what they should be concerned about. Yeah, Juan Soto hasn't been great, right? He hasn't lived up to the $800 million contract that he played 18 games for the New York Mets. Oh my God, it's not the end of the world. But if they really look deep into the numbers, he's not bad. He hasn't been bad. Has he been what we expected right off the bat? No, of course not. But what he has done is provided what a two-hitter at this moment, until he gets going, what a two-hitter should be. And a two-hitter should be a guy who gets on for the run producers. Now, unfortunately, our run producers suck other than Pete Alonso, right? Where's Vientos? Where's Nimmo? We should be talking about those guys more because of the fact those are your run producers. Yes, Juan Soto is going to be our run producer, but he's in the two-hole. He's in the two-hole for a reason, right? Yes, he'll probably hit 28 to 30 home runs around that area. He'll probably hit around that. He'll probably have his 90 RBIs or so. He will have that. But the reason why he's been put in number 2 in so many orders throughout different teams is the fact that he has a great eye at the plate. He doesn't go outside the strike zone as much. He has a little bit more with the Mets so far, but he's been getting on base. And again, what do you want from a number 2 hitter? Forget the name. What do you want as a number 2 hitter? What Brandon Nimmo used to be, right? The on-base guy, working counts. And that's another one, Juan Soto. He's been working counts. He hasn't been swinging at, the first pitch a lot or 1-0. He's been working counts. He has a lot of full counts through the first 18 games of the season, which is another good thing for a number 2 hitter. Again, we want more from Juan Soto. This is not me making excuses. It's just a fact. He hasn't been as bad as many people are portraying him. And that's the silly part. And that's the frustrating thing, other than not producing runs when you should produce runs. Again, 44 men left on base in that Twin series. You cut that by 5 or 6 runs that you drive in, you might win a series here. And again, it happens. It was a shitty series. You're back home. And again, on the road, you want to be a 500 team, right? The best teams in baseball are 500 on the road for the most part. A couple of games over, a couple of games under, nothing crazy. You got to take full advantage of being at home and being 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10 games over 500 at home, because that's where you get to the 95 plus wins. And right now, they're on pace for 99 wins, Chris.
Yeah, they are. They really are. And again, 11-7 is not 7-11 or worse. So I think that there's worse off positions this team could be in, given the offensive struggles that we're talking about here. Certain guys not producing that are supposed to be producing. And I think that that is just the fact of the matter. My allergies are going absolutely insane. I'm not sure if anybody else is struggling with me, but this is really bad. I'm like muting my mic. I'm like, just wiping my nose every 10 seconds. It's so bad. My eyes are burning right now, but you know what? We're live. It's all good. But yeah, no, listen, this is a great opportunity because, the Cardinals are 9-9, not going to wow you, but they got a really good pitcher on the mound today in Andre Palante. So, yes. It's a really good test for this lineup in terms of trying to rebound back at home, right? Well, like the Minnesota Twins are not a team that you should be losing a series to. I think that everybody understands that. And the Mets really shouldn't have lost that series. I mean, they lost both games due to, and we can pinpoint, it's not like, there's no way we were not going to win that series. Like, we can pinpoint pretty much in both of those games the 3 or 4 different occurrences that should have gone the other way for the New York Mets, and it just didn't. Whether it was loss of focus, whether it's just, lack of execution, whatever it was, we are able to pinpoint those things, and we have the answers as to why they lost that series, right? So it's not like we're trying to search for answers outside of maybe a lackadaisical offense, but even given the lack of offense, they were still in a position to win that series. And that is by no means a team you should be losing a series to. And that's what's so frustrating about it. But, onward we move. Andre Palante is a pretty good pitcher, man. He's a pretty good pitcher. He's got a good mix of pitches, and I think that it's going to be a very tough test. Now, what's so curious, and I guess, are we done recapping the road trip? Do you want to talk about anything about the A's? Okay, because, for those of you all who don't know, the background of the guy that's going on the mound for the Cardinals tonight, he makes a living off of getting the opposition to hit ground balls. He's got a very high ground ball rate, right? And so that's why I'm so very curious about this lineup. I think Starling Marte has a tendency to hit ground balls, right? Whether it's for singles or whether it's just grounding out. I think Brett Beatty, even though he's coming off of a multi-hit game, has the same tendency. So I'm very curious in terms of how this lineup is going to produce in hopes of getting some lift on the baseball and going gap to gap against Palante. So that's the one thing that I wanted to say. And, he's coming off of a game, Palante is, that he shut out the Philadelphia Phillies lineup, who are only one game behind the New York Mets. He went 7 innings, and he limited them to 2 hits, no runs. That's a very good outing to try to build off of. So this is going to be a very tough test, and it doesn't get any easier, right? It doesn't get any easier. And this is exactly the type of game that we should be watching out for in terms of who is producing competitive at-bats against a pretty solid pitcher and who isn't. This is a prime example of the perfect game to do it. And we'll analyze it and assess it as such on the post game.
Yeah, and that's what I got to do. It takes one game to start getting going again. Again, win today, find a way to win, break up that 2-game losing streak and start a new winning streak. It's just that simple. And the weather is supposed to be pretty good for this series. It's 63 today. It's going to be 67 tomorrow, 82 on Saturday. And then it gets a little cooler at 66 on Sunday. So the weather's going to be fine. No real rain in the forecast at all. So there's no excuses. Nobody's cold. Nobody's freezing. This isn't Minnesota. This isn't, Citi Field, the last time they played where it was cold. It is nice weather. It's decent weather. It's close enough to baseball weather as you can have in mid-April. So there's no excuses. They got to start getting going here. You know what? Put better at-bats together. Like you said, he's a ground ball pitcher. He wants to get there with ground balls. We're going to, Beatty's in the lineup. I was a little shocked that Beatty's in the lineup. Actually, no. I was shocked that Acuna and Beatty are not in the lineup. I thought they would both be in the lineup since they both actually, at least Beatty, showed a little bit of signs of actually hitting the baseball, and that's nice to see. And Acuna has been really good. So I would have liked to see both of them in the lineup. I thought we were going to see Acuna in center field. I'm not sure why, just to get him in the lineup. And I thought that was going to happen. But again, wishful thinking because, Jeff McNeil's on the horizon, our new center fielder and all. But overall, I think that this team just needs to, can I say play better? Like, it would be nice if Lindor, stops making crucial errors in games. I know I don't want to kill Lindor defensively, but he hasn't been great defensively. And that has obviously cost 2 of his pitchers and basically 2 games. And his bat, he's been better in April this year than he has been as a New York Met. So that's a positive. But it still doesn't feel like he's clicking on all cylinders. And I think when he does, I think it's just going to get the lineup going. And Brandon Nimmo is the key here. Like, as much as everybody kills Brandon Nimmo, and he deserves every bit of criticism because of how he played over the last couple of seasons. And, the lack of average, the lower average, the high strikeouts, the lower on base, everything that we don't like to see from Brandon Nimmo, he's doing at this point. He has 4 home runs. He's a solo home run hitter at this point. I don't like his approach. He's batting 5th today, so he hasn't been getting out of that 4th or 5th spot in the lineup because there's really nowhere to put him. Brandon Nimmo's the key here. I think if Brandon Nimmo gets as the plane's rolling by the place right now, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but if you can hear me, that's good. Brandon Nimmo's the key here. And, when he gets going, it just seems like everybody calms down a little bit because in my opinion, if Brandon Nimmo is the best Brandon Nimmo that we ever seen, he's probably one of the best contact hitters on this team. But he isn't that anymore. And I think getting away from that in the middle of that order, and he's another one that left a ton of men left on base over this entire stretch of games, which has been a huge problem. I feel like Nimmo in the middle of this order can calm everybody else down. Because it seems like if Vientos don't get it done, okay, Nimmo's got to do it now. And it seems like they're putting more pressure on themselves than they need to, or they're just trying too hard. Vientos don't go the other way anymore, even though we've seen it once in the Minnesota series. Nimmo, I mean, God forbid he goes the other way. I mean, he tried it, I believe, in game one, if I'm not mistaken, of the Twin Series, and then he just went away from it again. And a guy who used to work counts swings at first pitches almost all the time. And I'm okay with you doing it occasionally when you're trying to jump on a pitcher, but he seems to always do it. And it's so annoying. And I just wonder, is it going to stop with Brandon Nimmo trying to be this aggressive power hitter that he is not, Chris? Like at some point, it's got to get better. I mean, I hope it gets better because I don't need a 220 hitter in Brandon Nimmo have 23 home runs. Like, what are you then? You're basically what? A bad hitter that hits a few home runs? That's basically what he is.
Yeah, Brandon Nimmo definitely has to be better. Eh, it's frustrating. It's like, what is going on with Brandon Nimmo, right? And I think the Mets team collectively, I don't know Brandon Nimmo specifically. So when you come up and talk again, I'm gonna go on Baseball Reference. I'm gonna look at the actual statistics of his first pitch swinging, because Baseball Reference does have that category. But as a collective team, the New York Mets are ranked 17th in batting average while they're swinging at the first pitch in the MLB, right? I mean, the top three teams, I think the Braves are somewhere in there as well, which hasn't been successful for them, but also the New York Yankees are up there as well in the top three, and it has been a little bit successful for them. But also in the entirety, right? In its entirety, this lineup is ranked third, I believe, in the MLB in terms of hard hit rate. And it's a flawed stat. It's a projectable stat. And I know that not many people like the stat, but they are hitting the baseball hard. That's what they're doing. And you would think that eventually their luck is going to turn around, and it just simply hasn't yet. Conversely, the Atlanta Braves are also top 5 in hard hit rate, and you also see what their record is too, right? Like it's you know it's a give or take situation. I could truly say that. But yeah, I do think the keys to this lineup, right? It's not even about Mark Vientos, because I think that Mark Vientos is starting to show the signs of life and coming around. It's not about Juan Soto. Juan Soto is going to do what he does. Even if he maintains this pace for another month or two, we just said it. He is impacting the game offensively in other ways to keep the lineup turning over. Now, there are certain situations, especially when he takes, an offer in a game where he came up with the bases loaded, 1 out. He should have definitely produced, and he grounded into a double play, a weird double play, but a double play nonetheless. Yeah, of course, Mets fans are going to be pissed about that. But, you take a look at Brandon Nimmo. He's the bridge guy to right now. Unfortunately, you look at this lineup, and Luis Torrens may be a little bit excluded in this, but you can also just make the justification in terms of the top half of the order is all the names that you would expect. The bottom half of this order, as you look at today's lineup, is all the names that you would expect. It's a very clear distinction between top half and bottom half in terms of the names. The bridge guy to the bottom half of the lineup, right? When the pitcher kind of can finally exhale and he's like, oh, I got through the first half of this lineup. I could take it a little bit easier because I'm not worried about Starling Marte beating me. I'm not worried about Luis Torrens beating me, Brett Beatty, and so on and so forth until you get back up to Francisco Lindor. Like that spot that Brandon Nimmo is in right now, in that 5 spot, is very important. It's very important because he needs to apply that additional pressure before the pitcher can breathe that sigh of relief before he faces Starling Marte. And so if you are having the pitcher breathe a sigh of relief after Mark Vientos, and you're kind of just shortchanging it and just reducing that effect by 1 in the batting order, it makes the Mets lineup look less scary. And so I hope I explained that in an efficient manner, but that's why I really think that Brandon Nimmo is the glue guy to keeping this lineup a little bit lengthened, even though that we can obviously tell objectively it's a tale of two tapes in the first half of the lineup versus the second half. That's the way I see things right now.
Yeah, Brandon Nimmo's like the second leadoff hitter, right? He's got to get that bottom of the order jumping a little bit. And again, the bottom of the order right now, like lately, with Marte getting a few more hits, Torrance has been hitting all year. Overall, like those guys have been somewhat, hitting, especially when they've been starting in a game. If Brandon Nimmo starts to get on base a little bit, the bottom of the order could look a lot more, dangerous. Even if Acuna is in a lineup, which he's not today, hopefully Beatty, picks up where he left off the last few days with a couple of good at bats. The bottom of the order could be beneficial if Brandon Nimmo actually does something and gets on base. Again, solo home runs aren't bad. We all understand that, but it's Brandon Nimmo is like a leadoff hitter in the 5 spot because you expect the Lindors and the Sotos to get on for the Alonsos and the Vientos to drive them in. So more often than not, or at least what you might expect, is your 5th hitter kind of, in that area where you got to get on base at the moment. Because I don't expect Brandon Nimmo to be the big run producer. I don't think he is. I don't think he ever will be. I know he had 89 RBIs, blah, blah, blah. But again, Nimmo's got to get on base by any means necessary. Is that if that's walks, if that's singles, get on base. See what it does for the bottom of the lineup, so you don't have to put all that pressure. Obviously, the big money guys are going to get all the pressure regardless, but take a little bit of the pressure off the top of the order and let the bottom of the order, drive in a couple of these runs, do a little bit of their job, stepping up a little bit so the big guys, when they get right, can take over games. And I think that's the big problem with the top of the order. It seems like they just at this point they're trying too hard. Other than Alonso, who just looks dead focused, these other guys look like they're just doing too much. And it would be nice for the bottom of the order. And we always talked about the depth of this lineup. We thought the bottom of the order. We can talk about 1 through 7. Yes, Alvarez is not there, but overall, if you have Nimmo batting 5th, and let's say Martin Wicker batting 6th, and let's be honest, Luis Torrens, who's been a very good hitter for us, 1 through 7, this should be a lineup that is very hard to get through. And then 8 and 9, we'll see how it goes unless Acuna is in there. But you have almost 75-80% of your lineup that is threatening to a pitcher. It should be better. And it just seems like, one guy is going and then the next guy is not. And it just messes with the whole flow of the lineup. And that has been the case with Alonso. There's been nothing behind him at all. He's been doing everything, and here goes Vientos not doing anything, and Nimmo not doing anything. And the same thing when Lindor got a little bit hot and started to get going a little bit, Juan Soto was a 0. So it's just a combination of the flow of the lineup is just not flowing in the right direction, so to speak. It seems like it's like they're pushing against themselves, like waves are just crashing, and it's just a bad way to, I guess, phrase it, but it just seems like it's just not working the way it should and the way we all thought it would, at least the first, almost 20 games into the season.
Yeah, I mean that's a very objective take as well. I mean, there's no lies being told with what you just said. They're not performing at peak capacity. I think that we all know that. There's a lot left to be desired with this lineup in terms of the overall production and consistency. I'm curious, like, what do you make of this lineup today? Because you have Luis Angel Acuna, who has his own hit streak, if I'm not mistaken, right? Who's not playing today. You've got Jesse Winker, who just smoked a couple of baseballs in the last game and looked pretty competent in that cleanup spot, not playing today in favor of Starling Marte, who took the over in game 2 in the cleanup spot. I'm very curious, like, why is that the conscious decision? Now, I will say, I can sit here and nitpick at this lineup all day long, right? And I'm not going to go back on my word that I've said before. Any variation of a Mets lineup should still have the ability and capacity to score runs. But I look at game 3 yesterday in Minnesota, and I'm like, if you are going to go ahead and play Beatty again with a multi-hit day, that's fine. You should literally just DH Mark Vientos at that point.
Yep.
Right?
Agree.
But, if you don't, Acuna is probably a safer bet. And then you can also put in Winker there because they have been the ones generally producing from the way that I see things. I know that you're a Starling Marte guy. I'm not. I'm going to say this very upfront. I don't think that Starling Marte really is it. And I don't think that him batting anywhere in the top 6 of this lineup is not the answer, right? So that's really that. But I just am curious. I want to know what the pattern is here, and I want to know what the rhyme or reason is to playing certain guys on one day when you literally just had 2 guys that looked pretty good out there. I know that Luis Angel Acuna had some defensive miscues. I mean, he missed the throw to home plate to try to get Byron Buxton by inches, right? It was a little bit to the right of Luis Torrens instead of to the left. I understand all that, right? But offensively, he's looked competent, overly competent in the last 7 to 8 games. So what is going on now? And the same thing goes with Winker, who came off of a day where had an RBI, smoked a couple of baseballs. I mean, he really did. He really should have gotten a multi-hit game in game 3, but the 10th inning at bat was, I mean, it was right at the second baseman, which was unfortunate, resulting in a double play. I just don't see what the everyday assessment is of making these lineups. And I'm sure they have one. It's just not being stated to the public for me to actually sit here and analyze, because if I'm sitting here and looking at it, you said it even going into spring training or coming out of spring training going into the season, if a guy has a good day at the plate, are we going to be inclined to take him out the very next day? And I think the objective answer amongst a lot of fans is no. But that's what's kind of been happening recently from the way that I see things, honestly.
Well, Mendoza last year was the matchup guy, right? We knew that the lefty was going to be in for the righty. It was mostly matchup. It wasn't the hot hand. This year, it hasn't been the hot hand. It hasn't been the matchups. It's been all over the place. There's no pattern. So I have no idea why these guys are in the lineup. I mean, again, if you're going to put Marte in a lineup over Winker, the only thing I think somebody brought it up in the chat. I think he's batting over 600 against Palante. So I guess that might be a reason. But Acuna looked good yesterday. Winker looked good yesterday. Sitting those guys, this is why I hate the change in lineup so much. And I understand matchups. I get it. But could we a lineup that actually looked, I know we only got 3 runs yesterday, but at the end of the game, they looked competent. They looked better at the plate all around. I would have liked to see the same lineup. I would have. It's nothing drastic here. I would have liked to see the same lineup. If you would have thrown the same lineup as yesterday, I would have been okay with it. I would have been like, okay, I see Winker, getting a few hits. I see his at bat looking better. Same thing with Beatty. Same thing with Acuna. You could have found a way to, if you wanted Beatty in the lineup for, let's say, matchup purposes, you could have found a way to put Acuna in here, and DH and Vientos would have been a good idea. If that would have changed Marte not being in the lineup, fine. But you would have put Acuna, who's looking better at the plate. I just don't understand the quote-unquote pattern that they're doing here. I don't know what numbers they're looking at, because, again, if they're going by the numbers, then this lineup doesn't make sense for the numbers purposes. And even in the matchups, why is Marte in a lineup for a right-hander? It doesn't make sense. It would be Winker. So matchups don't make sense. Numbers don't make sense for most of these guys, right? Beatty hasn't seen Palante. Maybe he's seen him once or twice, so there ain't much to go after. I think Marte actually has over 600 batting average against Palante, so that's understandable. Okay, fine. But overall, I don't know. I'd like to know that. That's why I said I would have put Acuna in center field today. It's not like Tyron Taylor's doing anything special with the bat. So I would have put Acuna in center field. You're going to have to put him there eventually when McNeil comes back. So you might as well just do it now. First game at home, get it going. Get Acuna's bat in a lineup. I don't know. Now, the last time we critiqued this lineup, we're not mad about this lineup, but we're critiquing it because there's no pattern. And it doesn't make sense. It ain't matchup oriented. It ain't number oriented. So what the hell is it? So, the last time we criticized a lineup, probably to this extent, they scored 10 runs. So, and we all look stupid about the lineup. But, yeah, it doesn't fit a pattern on any spectrum. If you're arguing the numbers, you're arguing the matchups, it doesn't fit. So, maybe it's just a gut feeling. That's all I can think of. it's a gut feeling. You know, he came into his office at Citi Field and was like, you know what, I'm going to put this guy in today. You know, I'm not going to kill a manager for going with his gut because I rather that most of the time over the numbers. But there's no sense of pattern here, and it's totally different what Mendoza did last year. You knew almost 90% of the time he was going by matchups, regardless if the guy is hot or not, which we also critiqued. But I rather there be a better pattern. And again, has Mendoza been bad? I mean, the team's 11-7, so
Right.
it's hard to kill him. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, listen, again, any variation of this lineup that Mendoza throws out there should be able to score runs, and that's not the issue. I just wish that I had a little bit more of an understanding of that pattern that you just mentioned, and I don't think that I do. I don't think I have that understanding, unfortunately. And that might change, right? We might have a better understanding when the mainstay guys come with McNeil and Alvarez, right? But right now, how they're trying to get at bats for Brett Baty, what is the deciding factor there? Like, are they trying to just jam pack Brett Baty in the last final days before they send him down? Or, that's really the ultimate question. And Starling Marte as well. I mean, if you love matchups so much, I understand. I don't really know exactly coming into this stream what Marte is hitting off of Palante specifically. Maybe it is good to get, buy him that start, and that's maybe understandable. But, if you are going to be matchups oriented, lefty righty, that is, then you would figure, because this is not the first time that Marte is going righty versus righty, right? In this season, there's been other times where that has happened. And so therefore, I'm just kind of sitting here like, what is the actual pattern here? What is being prioritized versus what isn't? So, but again, we'll see what the output of this offense is going to be, come the post game show. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it if they don't produce. I'm sure that a lot of people in this fan base are going to be talking about it if they don't produce, but they got a good opportunity in front of them, right? A lot of Mets fans, it's Panic City. 11-7, and it's Panic City, Rob. Like, seriously. So they got a very good opportunity in front of the home crowd to
Yep.
shut some people up. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, and you know what? I know a lot of people that are going there today. Like, I think it's going to be a really good crowd. It's Easter week, so a lot of people off. It's what is it, Holy Thursday, whatever they call it. I'm not very religious, but Holy Thursday, Good Friday tomorrow. So obviously Passover and all that as well. So I don't know how many people are going to go, but it should be good crowds. I think the schools are out in New York this week, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So there should be a lot of people there. I think it's going to be, a good scene. They were in here for, 7 days. So they're ready to get back home, and the fans are going to be there. Look, the fans got to get behind them too. Stupid to boo Juan Soto. I don't think you should be booing anybody at this point. I don't think anybody has been a complete disaster. I mean, technically, Nimmo, I think, is probably the bigger problem out of everybody in this lineup. But nobody to get booed. Like, if you're gonna go to Citi Field to boo right off the bat, then stay home. Like, waste your money elsewhere. In my opinion, I think it's stupid at this point. I mean, you're booing a player or a team that is 11-7, and even though they haven't been clicking on all cylinders, they're still winning games, and there's still 4 games over 500, and by the way, in first place by a game. So it could be a hell of a lot worse, and they're not. So
can we talk about this comment from Yamid, sending Beatty down as a waste of time? They're going to let him play, and if he hits, he can be talked in trades. Like, you've said this countless of times, Rob, this season. Like, this is not a season to be using Brett Beatty as trade bait, right? And giving him every opportunity and keep failing in order for him to figure it out somehow. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's the most frustrating thing. Like, they probably went into this season with that mentality. And I do agree. Sending Brett Beatty down is a waste of time because nobody's going to really care if he picks things back up in AAA. But how many times are you going to sit here and not get production out of the position group that he's a part of and be okay with it? You know what I mean? Eventually, the Mets are going to have to cut ties, and they're going to have to cut ties in a method, in a manner that they don't want, because they're going to be selling low on him. And
Sure.
that's just the unfortunate reality. But with a win now team, there is no time, there is no room to be just trying to build his trade value back up. It's just asinine to me. It's asinine to me. And I said that from the very jump. I said that even going, in the offseason before he actually played his way into a roster spot.
Yeah.
There's no value. There's not going to be any value, especially with the start that he's gotten off to. And there's not going to be many places to input him when McNeil gets back. And especially if you're committed to Vientos at third base, like this is a non-factor. Like this comment of letting him play, quote unquote, just to build his trade value up is a non-factor. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
Let me
It's
actually
it's not smart. It's
yeah,
not good.
let me actually admit, and everybody else in the chat, if Brett Beatty was actually hitting and producing for this team, would you be talking about trading him? No, right? And on top of that, the fact that the lack of production from Brett Beatty, and yet his value is basically non-existent, there is no room for a contending team to have a guy trying to learn, develop, or get better at the major league level. I don't care if your name's Beatty, Acuna, guys like that. I don't care. If you're not producing and helping this team win, who should be winning games and should be over the 90-win plateau and being a playoff contender, then you're no use for us. You're going to be in the minors. Development is in the minors. I'm sick and tired of people saying, oh, well, they're going to bring him up and, make him learn on the job. Okay, so if he loses a couple of games for us, are you going to care then? There's no time for that.
Yamid wants to give Brett Beatty the whole entire first half to figure things out with the recent comment that he has in the chat.
Oh,
and it's just like,
no,
plenty of time in the season. Apparently, it's a long season. Yeah, there's plenty of
he's
time to continue to.
Like
it's again, like I know that he has his fans in this fan base. I understand that, but when is enough for even the Brett Beatty believers? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and maybe
I was one of them, but I also got to be realistic. You know what I'm saying? Like Mid just said, third baseman. Yes, you have plenty of third baseman. You could trade Beatty even if he's hitting. No, why would you want to trade a guy who's actually producing on your team to say, all right, let's trade Brett Beatty to see if Acuna or Jet Williams can do it? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, you're not trading the guy who's producing for you. That's the problem. If Brett Beatty was producing for us, nobody would want to trade him. Everybody wants to trade him or hopefully trade him because he's not doing anything. But in the same aspect, you're not getting anything for him. So if he's hitting, he would be here and he would be helping the team win. You're not trading the guy who's helping us win. That doesn't make sense. Contending teams don't trade guys on their major league roster that is helping you win. You trade prospects that hasn't done anything for you yet, or mostly anything for you yet. And that's still developing in the minors.
Beatty has 4 hits in his last 3 games, according to Buster. Let's see what he does tonight. And if he performs well, we're gonna talk about it. And I will objectively be intrigued of the thought of him potentially turning this around. But I'm not convinced. I can't sit here and tell you that I'm convinced with what Brett Beatty has been doing, even though he's coming off of a multi-hit game. I understand that. I can't say that I'm convinced. So let's see what he does tonight, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and again, he'll have this Cardinal series because I think after this Cardinal series, maybe even the end of this Cardinal series, McNeil's going to be up. So he don't have much time. He's got to go ape shit crazy to remain on this team. That's the only thing I could think of.
And you're not getting Sandy Alcantara.
No.
Sandy Alcantara. You're not getting him for Brett Beatty. You're not like even if you throw Brett Beatty into the equation of a potential trade for Sandy, the Marlins are not batting an eye if you're including Brett Beatty or not. That's not the deal breaker for them.
If the Marlins do that, they deserve to be out of Major League Baseball and in independent ball. Like, that's how bad.
There's just no way.
That would be crazy. Listen, I would love to do it. That would be great for us. But
I would love it too.
Yeah, of course.
Like as Joel's saying, I have the first plane ticket or first ride to the airport ready for him to go down to Miami for Sandy in exchange. But it's just not happening.
That's too expensive for Beatty. I drive him. Just pay tolls. That's it. Right down I-95.
Straight down 95.
That's it. That's it. Right past
Hell
DC
yeah.
where you live, past North Carolina where I live, and right down
Right.
to Florida. That's it. That's it. Pay the tolls, even the express lanes. Pay the extra couple of 50 cents. Let's go. Come on.
Crazy.
Listen, guys.
Crazy.
The fact of the matter is, this team is 11-7. Have they been great? No. The offense has been the biggest problem, and of this team, the runners left on base have been, again, outstanding number. That has to change. We all expect it should change based on the guys in this lineup, the names on this team. They should be better. 1 through 5 should be scary. It's not right now. Besides Alonso, it's not. Now, Vientos had a few good at-bats. Soto had a couple of good at-bats, couple of home runs. Lindor's been okay. Nimmo has been very much the biggest problem, in my opinion. Somebody's got to step up other than Alonso. Somebody. And I don't care how much money you make. All these guys are making well over $20 million besides Vientos. But you know what? Vientos had a year last year. Well, now he's a part of that mix of being a run producer. So he's got to get going as well. But you got big money guys that are not doing the job. Get it done. And Chris, any final words before we call it a stream? And hopefully you're talking about a Mets win on the postgame.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see Joel here saying that the notifications don't happen when I go live or whatnot. I'm not sure if YouTube has a way to actually check that. Unfortunately, I will go and double check, but I'm not sure if YouTube is just like knocking the notifications on my channel or not. But I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, Joel.
Did you click the bell next to the subscribe button? Because I know sometimes if you click on it, they give you options. So it might be only for videos, only for live. But just click all and you get notifications for everything, videos and live.
Yeah. If you did do that, I've got no idea. YouTube's been kind of weird recently, to be honest. It's been kind of weird, and it seems like they're shifting a lot of things within their settings and their algorithm.
Algorithms are huge. Every year around this time, especially for sports content, they switch it up crazy.
It's infuriating to me. Yeah. It's infuriating. It seems like there's like less traffic, which is okay. I'm still going to be here doing my thing, but it's just like it seems like there's less traffic, which is whatever. No, final thoughts are just take care of business at home. I mean, you're embarking on a homestand. I get it that you just played 6 games in a row and you're going to be playing 13 games in a row, so another 7. But there's no excuses for this team. This is going to be a really good test. Palante is a good pitcher, like I said before, ground ball heavy pitcher. And so I'm very curious. I'm taking notes of the types of at bats that each of these players in the Mets lineup are taking and what really the end result is going to be, given that, Andre is a ground ball pitcher. So we'll see. Offense has to get it rolling. Hopefully Griffin Canning is all good, all well rested, and he doesn't have any residual effects. Very curious if he's going to be on a quote-unquote pitch limit, given that he could possibly still have a little bit of sickness to him. I mean, is he completely over his sickness? We have no idea, right? Is there a pitch limit? We have no idea. So I'm going to continue to monitor that, but I think that, in general, if he continues to throw that slider effectively, he'll be fine. Let's go, Mets. Post game tonight. Myself and Zach from Sunny Days in Flushing is going to be joining me again. I've been doing a very nice job filling in for Rob whenever you can't make it. And you're going to see a lot more of Rob as well, because this weekend I will be unfortunately going out of town. I'll try to make a stream here and there, but Rob is going to be holding it down for the most part in the pre-games and the post-games. You'll see me. I'm taking 2 trips back to back. So we'll see exactly, how much I'm able to get in over the next week. But I'll try my very best. I appreciate you all. Let's go Mets. And hopefully we have a stream tonight, a post-game stream, where we can spam the W's. I need it. I'm itching for it. Let's go.
There we go, guys. So let's start the winning streak again today. Again, this 13 stretch of games with no off days is the test for the Mets, as I said, starting the athletic series. So let's see them get it going at home. And hopefully Chris and Zach are talking about a Mets win and spamming those W's on the post game. Have a good day, guys. Enjoy the game, and let's go Mets.
the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have